Hey, welcome back to the Photon Rookie channel. My name's Jim. Today we're going to take this mega stacked image of the Horse Head Nebula and we're going to process it. This image is comprised of 6,401 10-second subs from the Seestar S50. It was stacked in Siril using a Drizzle function. I had to use an external hard drive because it took so much space to process that many subs, and as you can see it took about 25 hours to complete it. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into Siril and see how we process this. Okay, we have Siril open now. The unstretched IC434 Horse Head Nebula image is here on the screen. One thing I would like to do first is change it from put it in landscape, change it from portrait to landscape. So you come right down here and hit this little symbol and it fills up the whole screen. I think landscape looks better for the Horse Head Nebula just because of the way the object is shaped. So what we're going to do first is we'll look and see how much data that 6,401 10-second subs gave us. So you come down here to the linear tab and you hit auto stretch. And there you can see your data. So looks pretty good. Looks like we got a lot to work with there. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the green noise. Whenever you use the LP filter on the Seestar, it will introduce quite a bit of green noise, and that's what you're seeing in this image. So we come up here to image processing, come down to remove green noise, select apply, and after I select apply you'll see the green noise will be eliminated. There you go. So the green noise is out. What we're going to do next is we're going to remove the stars from the image so that we can work just on the nebula. So I'm going to go back into linear mode and image processing. We're going to come down to star processing. We're going to select StarNet star removal. Make sure you check the pre-stretched linear image because our image is not stretched yet. Hit execute and we'll just give it a moment here while it removes the stars from the image. As I've stated in previous tutorials, this is a really important step to remove the stars. That way, when you're manipulating the nebula, you're not also manipulating your stars in the background. About halfway there now. Okay, the stars have been removed from the image. If we go back to auto stretch and look at the image, you'll see the stars are gone and you're just left with the nebula. You still have the halo of some of the really bright stars. That will remain, but all the stars are pretty much gone from the image. So let's go back to linear. So what we're going to do first, normally I would take this linear image and I would send it to Grexpert, but in this case I used a Drizzle function in Siril for the Seestar script, and I found out through experience whenever I use Drizzle on an image, Grexpert doesn't seem to play well with it. It'll work, but it doesn't really seem to help the image. So in processing this Horse Head Nebula, since I use Drizzle, we are not going to use Grexpert today. Instead, I'm going to go ahead and stretch the image here in Siril right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to image processing, general hyperbolic stretch transformation. You're going to get this box. We'll move it over here out of the way so we can see our image. We're going to use generalized hyperbolic transform, and we're going to go with human weighted luminance, and we're going to leave the stretch intensity where it is, and we're going to use this slide bar to start stretching our image. So here we go. We'll get started. So there's one stretch, and you'll keep stretching over and over again until you see your image start to appear on the screen. So there it is. Okay, You can see the Horse Head Nebula there, but the screen's very washed out with this whitish gray tint. What we're going to do to remove that is we're going to come up here to type of stretch, and we're going to come down to linear stretch, black point shift. We're going to select that. As stated in previous tutorials, all the data for your image is located inside this spike on the graph. Everything to the left of it is pretty much a dead zone. What we're going to do is we're going to remove this dead zone, and that'll get rid of this white gray tint. So we're going to use this slide bar here to do that. So as we slide it out and move that over, you see that all that white gray tint disappearing. Now, one thing you have to be careful when you're using this black point shift, down here at clip percentage, you want to keep this value at 0 if you can. If you see anything other than 0 there, then you're clipping into the data of the nebula and using that data that you worked hard to capture. So we don't want to clip it. You can clip it a tiny bit, but you want to keep this value as close to 0 as possible. So I'm going to continue, and you can see we've started clipping into the image. So I'm going to back off a little bit, come back in, use the fine tuning here when you get close. So I've clipped it a little bit, not worried about that, that's not much. So you want to be sure to hit apply, and then we're going to go back to stretch it some more. This time I'm going to switch, I'm going to go with even weighted luminance under color stretch model. Alright, so we're going to come back up here to our stretch bar and see if we can bring the image out some more. And we are, it's coming out nicely there. So we'll hit apply. That may be as far as I want to go. Let's take a look if we stretch it a little bit more. Alright, I would say that looks pretty good right there. I'm going to hit apply. One indication of the effectiveness of your stretch you can do is come up here where it says logarithmic scale and click on that. It doesn't always work out right. It's very difficult to do, but when you bring up this logarithmic scale, you'll see this quick rise in the 3 channels and the data come up and it'll drop off. Usually the best stretches will come from this peak down into this corner. If I go to type of stretch and hit invert modified arcsine transform, then it does a reverse stretch, and I can usually bring those bring that graph back down. Like I say, it's very hard to get it perfect. I'm just going to leave it where it is, go back to my normal stretch. I think what we have works pretty good here. I think we'll be able to work with this. So I'm going to hit apply. And that looks pretty good so far. So what we're going to do is we're going to save this image. And what we're going to do is we're going to put it in a program called Gimp. And we're going to work on it from there, sharpen it up and bring out more detail. So the way we're going to do that is you're going to hit this download button. You're going to turn this image into a TIFF file. You come down here to supported image files, click on that and hit TIFF files, and it just changed this image into a TIFF. Now, I have a folder called TIFF on my desktop. That's where I put all my TIFF files. It's my grand central station where I put TIFF files in and take them out. It's just easy to know where they are. So here is that folder. So I'm going to save this image from Siril into my TIFF folder as a TIFF file. You'll have to hit save twice. Okay, so it's saved there. What we want to do now is we want to minimize Siril. Be sure not to close it. It's very easy to do that accidentally. Here is Gimp open. So we're going to load our file into Gimp. So we're going to get that file out of the TIFF folder on my desktop. So you hit open, you go to desktop. And let's go down to the TIFF file, open it, and there's our starless image. So we're going to open it up. We don't want to convert it when this box opens. Just hit keep. And there it is. So our image from Siril is now in Gimp, so we can start working on it. What I like to do first is work on color. So I'll come up here to colors. And the first one I'm going to use is saturation. So this is where we adjust the intensity of the colors in the image. So you have a slider scale in this box that opened up here. As you go to the right, you notice the color getting more and more intense in the image. You can definitely go too far with it. If you go too far the other way, you can actually create a black and white image. So let's go back to our starting point. I think we can add a little intensity, not too much. There, I think that looks pretty good right there. So you hit OK. The next thing we're going to do is come back up to colors. We're going to come down to exposure, and you can move this exposure slider back and forth. See if it improves your image any. I think it kind of washes it out if we increase it, and you lose data if you decrease it. So I'm just going to reset and cancel that. We're not going to do anything with exposure. Come back over to colors again and come down to shadows, highlights. Now you've got three different sections you can work with here. The first one, shadows, is pretty interesting because by increasing the shadows slider bar, you can bring out more detail, or the detail becomes clearer in your image, but it also lightens your image up and may introduce more noise. So let's reset that. Maybe we can come up just a tiny bit with shadows. Yeah, that's good. It brought out a little bit more of this cloud and maybe a little bit here too. So that's good. Now on white point adjustment, you can reduce the glare of these stars a little bit by adjusting that. So if you take it all the way to the left, you'll see it reduced it some, but it also reduced your image overall. So you want to make sure that you're not taking any detail out of your image by using that. I may bring it down to about there. That looks good. And this highlights will sometime affect the stars. You see that? It lowered especially that large star there on the left. Bring it back up and the glare comes back. I don't like that halo that it's kind of put around it, so I'm going to bring it back up and probably not use the highlight slider. Okay, so we'll hit OK for that box. The next thing, we go up to colors and we come down to brightness contrast. Contrast has a profound effect on the image, and as you move this slider, you'll see if you go and add contrast, it pretty much destroys your image if you add too much. You go back the other way and it just grays it out. So going back to our starting point and maybe adding just a tiny bit of contrast. That's probably a little too much. Alright, I'd say that looks pretty good right there. We only added a tiny bit. Actually, we took a little bit away if you look up here on the slider. But that looks good. I'm going to keep that. Okay, now we're getting to the fun part. We're going to go up here to filters. We're going to come down to enhance, and we're going to come down to sharpen, and we're going to sharpen this image slightly. So when you click on that, Gimp automatically adds a little bit of sharpness to the image. You can see over here on the slide bar, if I take the slide down, that takes the image back to where we started. If you slide it to the right too much, you can definitely overdo it. So let's go back to our starting point and bring it up just slightly. And what I'm trying to do is trying to just enhance the horse head and this area here where the star is peeking out of this cloud area here. It'd be good to get these structures sharpened up. So that's pretty good for right now. I'm going to send this through Astrosharp, a program called Astrosharp, so I don't want to overdo it here in Gimp. So I'm going to hit OK on that. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to introduce a little bit of noise reduction. Again, we come up here to filters, come down to enhance, and here noise reduction. So it applies a little bit of noise reduction already. If I take that slider down, that's where our image started. And as you take it up, you can see the effect is real subtle. I don't know if you can see it on YouTube, but I'm going to allow a little bit of noise reduction here and hit OK. Okay, for right now we're done in Gimp with the with this nebula image. What I'm going to do is I'm going to save it back in my TIFF folder. So you don't want to hit Save As. When you save something out of Gimp, you want to come back to Export As. And my TIFF folder is open here, so I'm going to hit Export. It's going to ask me if I want to replace what's already there because our starting image had the same name. I'm going to hit Yes and replace it. And you have to hit Export again in this box. Okay, this image is saved back in my TIFF file. So what I want to do is I want to go ahead and close Gimp now. Discard changes. I want to go back to Siril. And let's go to our star mask. The star is removed. Next, and open that. And there it is. Okay, we're going to go ahead and stretch the stars now. So I'm going to hit Image Processing, Generalized Hyperbolic Transform. And this time for type of stretch for the stars, we're going to use Modified Arcsine Transform. And we want to take this back over to Humid Weighted Luminance under the Color Stretch model. Okay, so let's go ahead and stretch the stars. Normally I take the stars up to about 7.5. You can adjust them again later in processing. So about right there looks pretty good. So you want to hit Apply, close that box, and hit Save. Now I'm noticing I've got a little artifact right here. I'm not sure what's causing that, but I want to go ahead and get rid of this little blue artifact right now. So I want to come up in Image Processing. I want to go to Color Saturation. I want to choose Cyan Blue, and I want to drop this down to get rid of that. It left a little object there, which I think that object's going to be located inside that intense glow with our nebula when we marry things back together. We'll keep an eye on that, but I definitely wanted to get rid of that blue color. There are other ways you can do it in other programs, but this is just a quick way to do it. So you want to hit Apply, and you want to save the image like that. Okay, so there we have our stars. Now I want to send this, convert this to a TIFF file, and send this to my TIFF folder also. So we come up here to Download. You want to Supported Image Files. You want to hit TIFF Files. Again, you want to locate the TIFF folder on my desktop, and you want to save it. Hit Save again, and now we can minimize Siril. If you look in our TIFF folder, we've got our starless image and we've got our star mask right here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use a program called Astrosharp. Astrosharp works really well with images that have a lot of data. So an image like this one with 6,400 fit files should work well in Astrosharp. If you've got an image with just 100 or 200 fits to use, you can try it, but generally in my experience, Astrosharp doesn't do well with images with a low amount of data. So what you want to do with this, you want to make sure second beta is chosen. I don't know why that works the best, but that model seems to work best for me in my images. You want to make sure that the full image circle is checked here. And now we're going to go ahead and browse into our TIFF folder, and we're going to load the starless image in. And there it is. It's kind of washed out. Don't worry about that. That's normal. So we want to use these sliders. Since this image has a whole lot of data to work with, I'm going to be very aggressive with sharpening. And it's a deep space object, so we're going to take this slider up to the maximum as well. Here for stars, there are no stars in the image, so we're going to bring that back to 0. And then we're going to hit Update Sliders. And this takes a moment. Once Astrosharp does its thing, it's going to load the result image right here, and you'll be able to see it. Down here you see a slide bar is opened up, and you can watch the progress. Okay, we did a time jump here, so we didn't have to sit here staring at this progress bar on the bottom right for the last 3 or 4 minutes. It's just about done now. So Astrosharp's going to complete, and then it's going to load our result image here in this area momentarily. So the slide bar's gone now. It's done its thing. And here comes the image popping up. There it is. Okay, so it looks pretty good here. What we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and download it. And we're going to download it into the TIFF folder, our Grand Central Station for all TIFF files. And we're going to hit save. Okay, you can close Astrosharp now. And we're going to open our TIFF folder up. And I'm going to open the processed image we just did and compare it to the unprocessed image, just so we can kind of have an idea of whether Astrosharp helped our image or not. Okay, so this is the unprocessed image. This is the image that went through Astrosharp. So we can zoom in a bit on the horse head. And I can see a difference. If you look at this little artifact in the clouds here, it seems to be a bit clearer here. If you look through this big cloud bank right here, it seems to have a little bit more definition there. You can see some of this wispiness a little bit better around the horse head. So that looks good to me. I think that was well worth it. You can also look down here in this little tunnel in the dark clouds. That seems to be sharper. So we're going to go ahead and keep that. So what I'm going to do next is just go ahead and get rid of the starless image because we don't need it anymore. And at this point, I have to rename the processed image. So what I'm going to do is click on that, come down here and rename it. All I'm going to do is put a 1 in front of the word processed. And the reason I'm renaming this is because when we run the star mask through Astrosharp, it's also going to save it back into this folder as an image called processed. If we didn't change the name of this, it would try to save our star mask over it, and we don't want that to happen. So we're ready to go back to Astrosharp now. Astrosharp can sometimes be a bit flaky to open. Sometimes you have to try to open it more than once. I hear others have the same issue with it, so if it happens to you, don't worry about it. It's just a little quirk in the program. So we have Astrosharp open again. Again, we're going to pick the second beta model, make sure full image is checked. Now let's grab our star mask from our TIFF file. So it's going to load that in. Now, one thing I've learned is to be careful with stars. You don't want to overprocess stars because it's very easy to ruin them. So I'm not going to be as aggressive with sharpening the stars as I was with the nebula. So I'm going to drop the aggressiveness tab way down here to where it's just barely registering. The DSO can go to 0 because we're not doing the deep space object. We're doing the stars. And the PSF for stars, I want to bring it down low too. So we'll do a tiny bit of sharpening, but not much. In fact, I probably wouldn't even take the star mask through Astrosharp, but you have to, because if you take your starless image through Astrosharp and then you don't take your star mask through Astrosharp, you will not be able to combine them back together in Siril. So if you take one through Astrosharp, the other one's got to go through before you'll be able to put them back together. So let's go ahead and update sliders. And again, it'll take a few moments for this. We'll get our progress bar to open up down here. And there it is. And in a couple of moments, this process will be done. Okay, we did another time jump, as that took about 3 minutes. So we didn't want to just sit here watching that progress bar. It's just about finished with the stars now. Progress bar is full. So that'll be disappearing, and Here momentarily it will load the results onto our screen. And there it is. So we're going to go ahead and download that to our TIFF folder, and we're going to hit save. We can go ahead and close Astrosharp, and let's open our TIFF folder back up. And you can see we have our one process that we renamed of the nebula, and then we have our processed, which is the star field that was just processed in Astrosharp. We do not need star mask anymore, so we can delete that. What we're going to do now is we're going to send these two back to Siril, but we're going to go through Gimp first. I like to use Gimp to look at the images one more time, make any final adjustments, and also change them back into fit files for Siril. So let's go ahead and do that now. Open up Gimp. And hit open. Go to desktop. Go back to my TIFF folder. And we'll open the nebula first, one processed. So there it is. That's what it looks like after going through Astrosharp. Looks pretty good. But we can do our little last final adjustments here. I really don't want to change anything about the color. I think we've got the right saturation and the right hues and everything, but I am going to try to sharpen it a little bit more. And what I like to do is go to View, come down to Zoom, and fill up the window. It didn't bring it up much, but I want to be looking close as I do sharpening. Sharpening you got to be careful with, because you can bring up a lot of these little crystal-like artifacts if you over sharpen your image. But let's try and see what we can do. We're going to come over to Filters, just like we did before. Come down to Enhance and come down to Sharpen. Now, it added a little bit of sharpen on its own. We could play with it. I don't think I want to go any further than that, because as you take it up, you see you start getting those artifacts I was talking about. So bring it back down till they pretty much disappear. All right, I think we can take a little bit of sharpening. I think that's about as much as I can do. So we'll hit OK. And the last thing we'll check is come down to Enhance again. Noise reduction. See if noise reduction helps us out any. I don't want to lose the sharpening we've gained. It helps a little bit. Again, you probably can't see it on YouTube, but it's really subtle. So we'll introduce a little bit of noise reduction there. So that's it. I think we can go ahead and send this image on back to Siril so we can get ready to add the stars back to it. So again, to send this back, we come up here to File. Again, we don't use Save As. We come down here to Export As. The reason we do that is it gives us this option here to turn it back into a fit file. And I learned using this program that FIT in fit file stands for Flexible Image Transport System. So we click on that and it turned it into a fit file. And then I need to put that back in my Siril home file, which is on my D drive. And there it is right there. And I hit export. All right, this image is back in Siril's home file now. So what I want to do, I like to completely close Gimp between images. It's just cleaner that way. What I want to do now is I want to close it, discard changes, and I want to reopen it again so we can do the star field. And I don't anticipate doing any adjustments on the star field. I just want to turn it into a fit file and send it back to Siril. Here's my TIFF file. Here's our process, which is our star field. So we'll open that. And there it is. That looks pretty good. Again, we're keeping an eye on this little crosshatch artifact here that we turned from blue to white, but I think that's going to be swallowed by that glare on the nebula image. So what we're going to do is we're going to hit File, and we're going to hit Export As. We're going to again change this to a fit file, and we're going to save it in our Siril work home file. Export. All right, now we can close Gimp. Now let's reopen Siril. Okay, let's open our one processed file right here, which is the nebula. And there it is, looks good. So you want to hit save there. I don't really see anything there I want to change on it in Siril. I think that looks pretty good. Let's go ahead and rejoin the stars back to it. So we're going to come back up to image processing and star processing, star recomposition. You're going to get a box open up here with two graphs in it. The left side is the nebula, the right side will be the stars. So you want to come to this little folder right here, click on it, and you want to choose the one processed image, which is your nebula. All right, it's loaded in now. For this other box, you want to come again up to this little folder icon, and you want to just take processed, which are your stars. Okay, so just added our stars back in, and remember we had that little artifact. It looks like it's pretty well swallowed up by the nebula, or by the bright star over here. So what we're going to do, some people like to have all the stars in it. I will probably reduce the stars a little bit, and the way you do that is you use this black point on the star side of the box here, and if you take it way up, you'll see you'll have a lot of stars disappear. You can actually take all the stars out. I don't really want to do that, so I'm thinking probably I think that probably looks pretty good there. So we'll hit apply on the stars. We can play around with the nebula image a little bit. You can actually stretch it more if you think you need to. I don't think we need it. I think we were good enough there. You can adjust the black point a little bit. If you adjust it too much, you'll see what will happen. You'll start clipping into your image and start losing a lot of data. So let's go back to the starting point. A little bit of adjustment on this might be pretty good. So let's try a little bit of adjustment and see what happens. All right. Try a little bit more. Too much. And all this is subjective. I mean, you can process these images thousands of different ways, play with different color palettes, focus on different parts of the image to work on. It's almost endless, the stuff that you can do. All right, I think that looks pretty good. So I'll hit apply. Make sure you hit apply on the star side too, and then hit close. So I'm going to call that finished. 6,401 10-second subs stacked in Siril using the Drizzle modification on the Seestar script. I think that came out pretty good. I really like that wispiness around the horse head. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you learned something. Again, I'm open to criticism. I'm still pretty new at this. If you see something on here I missed or I could have done better, please let me know. If you have any other questions, please let me know. We're almost halfway to our goal of 1,000 subscribers. If you found these videos helpful, please like and subscribe, because I plan to keep doing them. If you have any suggestions for videos, let me know. I'm an amateur at this, just like most of you are, and still learning. So that's it for this Photon Rookie video. My name's Jim. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.